Do you hear me?
Yes, General Andarabi, I can hear you now.
From the Delhi studios of Republic TV, it's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate.
Arnab Goswami on the debate at 10, powered by Puric, Lupizine Plus, Reva University and Vedanta.
Programming reminder, viewers, couple of minutes. I'm going to be joined in a couple of minutes by the former Minister of Interior of Afghanistan, General Masood Andarabi, who has also been head of Afghanistan's premier National Directorate of Security, the NDS. He's going to be joining us in a couple of minutes, and he will be in a position to tell us what really happened and how the Taliban could so quickly move into Kabul. But before that, we have been flooded here at the Republic Network by videos in the Republic newsrooms of how the Afghans are fighting back the Taliban. And as they raised their national flag on their Independence Day throughout the country, they were met with bullets and brute force. But that has not stopped them from carrying out resistance marches. My special guest, General Masood Andarabi, will be breaking his silence on this in a couple of minutes. But before that, here are the visuals.
Women and children are in the line of fire right outside the Kabul airport.
Kids are getting, they're throwing flashbangs. See, they don't know how to control the crowd.
Children being tossed over barbed wires to flee this horror. On Afghanistan's 102nd Independence Day, Taliban is blacking out the Afghan flags. Watch this video. As youth sporting Afghan armbands and face masks brought out gigantic flags of Afghanistan onto a terrace, armed Taliban terrorists swooped down and shut them down. Afghan flags were removed at gunpoint. Look at this video, how this patriot is abducted. Or this video, where Taliban terrorist snatches and wraps up the Afghan flag on a bicycle. Several Afghans have been shot dead in the last 24 hours. This video is from Nangarhar, and this is the proof. In response to the Taliban terror, this is how Afghans have spoken today. Watch this 200-meter flag being carried on the streets of Kabul on their shoulders, in the heart of the Taliban rule. The march, a slap in the face of terrorists who open fire. Hear their voices, feel their courage. And women are the face of this resistance. Taliban may have taken over choppers, but the irony is that these terrorists don't even know how to operate them. Republic has been flooded with hundreds of videos. A truth blacked out by the global media. Tonight we stand with our Afghan brothers and sisters. Let's debate.
General Masood Andarabi, who is my very special guest tonight, has been in charge of the security of all of Afghanistan for over 5 years. And he's been speaking openly. He's former Minister of the Interior, head of Afghanistan's National Directorate of Security till a few months back. I'm grateful that he's agreed to join us on what will be really a tell-all interview. Thank you, General Masood Andarabi, and my best wishes first to you on the 102nd Independence Day of the great nation of Afghanistan.
Thank you very much. It's happy to be with you.
Thank you. General Andarabi, first I would like you to tell all our viewers when these pictures are being telecast, and I'm sure you've seen them. 100-meter long flag of Afghanistan being driven through the streets of Kabul when the world least expected it. The world expected that the people of Kabul, the people of Afghanistan would not put up any resistance, but we had pictures that really told a completely different story today. There were youth who were being beaten, some being shot, 2 killed for simply holding up the Afghan flag today. Is this a beginning of a resistance? And how long can this resistance hold?
Well, the Afghan people, particularly in the last 20 years, they choose a new way of life. If you remember, people sacrificed in several elections that we had. Their fingers were cut, but still they pursued with all the terror and with all the attacks that were happening in Kabul. Life was going on. And the people, and particularly the new generation, was very much in favor of a democratic Afghanistan, rule of law, and also the new values that we had. So yes, the government is collapsed, Taliban is now in power, but it doesn't mean that the mentality of the people have changed with this. So this scene that you are seeing, it's not one. There is a lot that is not being covered. The people of Afghanistan would only surrender to a government that could fulfill today's demand, that could be in line with the new generation of Afghans that are studying, that has grown up in the last 20 years. So I'm not surprised to see that the Afghans are taking the flags, but certainly other women and youth and people who really want to continue the accomplishments of last 20 years will come up and speak their mind. And even in the front of the violence, or maybe whenever requires to use violence, I don't think that the Taliban will be able to stop that as well, unless they're really going to change to the new way of life that Afghans are seeking, which seems, based on what they have been handling in the last 1 year, is a difficult task.
Do you think the Taliban will respond to this with just brute force? Can they do that? The whole world is also looking at them. There's a lot at stake for them. Can they respond with brute force on civilians?
I think the Taliban at this stage is trying to do anything that they would try to. They are knowing that the internationals and everyone, the world is watching them. So certainly they will not be very brutal, and they will allow some sort of openness, but that's not indigenic. That's not in the root of Taliban cause. Violence, destruction is in their root. So I do not think that they will be able to continue what they are promising, and they will harshly go after these movements in the days and weeks ahead.
And what will that do to the movements? What will that do, to the resistance on the ground? I'm not talking about the armed resistance. I'm talking about the peaceful protests.
I think certainly the people would continue this. Right now, Afghanistan would not be only about it would not be only about street protests. There will be activists, there will be social media, we have one of our great achievements is the press. If it's not in Kabul, will be elsewhere in the world. But these voices will continue, and it's not the Afghanistan of 2009 or 1996 that the Taliban came to Kabul and the voices were very limited, and with few crackdowns, they managed to stop these voices. But the new developments in technology and social media, this will carry on unless they bound to it and change it.
Now, is the general expectation, General Andarabi, that you put economic pressure on the Taliban? Even in the latest interview of US President Joe Biden, the assumption seems to be that if the Taliban want to run a government, they are going to have mouths to feed, salaries to pay. They'll need billions of dollars to simply operate. And therefore, they will be brought to a situation where they will be forced to negotiate. Now, I find that dangerous, simply because one cannot negotiate with the Taliban, and the Taliban cannot be trusted. For today, simply for financial or practical reasons, they might appear to have changed. The Western media may project that they have changed, but once they have cut the deal, they will not change their ways. Therefore, do you believe that the Taliban need to be removed, or do you believe that the Taliban need to be brought to their knees? These are two different things.
Well, I think this is, we had such an immense opportunity after these peace talks and discussions. We can talk about that later, why we could not utilize it and we reached to the stage that we are. I think at this stage, assuming that all the armed forces and the structure that was really effectively resisting the Taliban is dismantled. So what left is international pressure, not only on Taliban, but also on their harbors. A lot of leaders of Taliban and has been for years and years in Pakistan. Right now, the Haqqanis are back to Kabul. They're very active. They're kind of touching very sensitive areas in the Afghan government, so that they have they are becoming more powerful. Not maybe actively in the media, but at the back door, they are very active, and we have known that they have been for years and years instrumental of Pakistan's foreign influence. So I think pressure only on Taliban would not be enough. At the same time, we make sure that the Pakistanis who have been harboring them would also tell them that, yes, if you do not comply with the new Afghanistan and with the new international laws and also with the new values that Afghans have, then you do not hope that you will get a sanctuary back in Pakistan in the years that you may lose your governance. So that's very important, that it's not only that we continue to impose what's being imposed right now by international community on Taliban, but this pressure should equally continue on Pakistan, because I still believe that whatever the Taliban would do, if they don't have a hope that they will have a safe haven back, if they are rejected by the Afghan people and international community as an illegitimate presence in Afghanistan, then they should be hopeless from any opportunity that they might go and continue their resistance.
What if China steps in quickly? It's already got Pakistan in its grip financially, provides financial and other strategic help to the Taliban, stabilizes things for them, ends the economic pressure on them, then what?
From that perspective, it's not only, I mean, from an influence and from a harm that these forces, the Taliban are bringing, would be for our neighbors. That includes China and also Central Asia, Iran, and others. They should all be aware that the Taliban have not cut ties with the international terrorism. And the recent months before the capture of Kabul, there has been constant contact between them and some other international terrorists that are in Syria, Iraq, elsewhere. Even there was talked about their relationship with Daesh in terms of how they could align once they got the power. So this is going to be a very, very dangerous force in the country if they do not cut their ties with these terrorists. And certainly the implications of it would be on the neighbors of Afghanistan and China as an economic power in the country would not be excluded from it, particularly the concern that they have from the ETIM, which have enjoyed for several years safe havens with Taliban in Badakhshan and elsewhere.
So what you're saying is that if China actually steps in and saves the Taliban and helps the Taliban, it will help in the setting up of a global hub of terrorism in which the ISIS, other forces, other Islamist terrorist groups all will find a base and a safe haven in Afghanistan.
That's very important for all Afghan neighbors who are interacting with Taliban or whoever is in contact with Taliban should assure themselves of the dismantle of this connection, should assure itself that the Taliban will no longer be the haven for safe haven for these terrorist groups. Otherwise, certainly they will put not only Afghans in harm, but they will put their interests in harm in the region.
In that case, General Masood Andarabi, you're such an experienced man. You had a ringside view of the talks that happened. You obviously knew some of this. You had the access to all the intelligence. You are the head of Afghanistan's National Directorate of Security. You were the Minister of Interior till a few months back. Why did you trust the Taliban? What was that deal? I'm sure you knew that the Taliban cannot be trusted. They're talking to the ISIS. Then why did that deal happen, which set the stage for the withdrawal of US troops? And how could anyone be part of it? What is your view on it? What happened there?
The Afghan government had its stand and it had its point of view. And certainly the deal was between the US and the Taliban. And then the second phase of that was that the Taliban would start negotiating with the Afghan side. And we had groups, as you know, in Doha and Kabul. And we had to utilize that opportunity. The fact that we had the opportunity to talk with Taliban, I think, was an opportunity, was a plus point. But the fact that we could not convince them, that we could not utilize politically to leverage for the Afghan benefit, for the Afghan democratic government, the benefit was something that was a failure from Afghan side. And also militarily, I still would call it that this was not a military defeat, rather it was a political defeat. And if you look at the last day in Kabul, nobody was expecting Taliban be coming to Kabul unless president escaped. And that kind of created a vacuum. Otherwise, there was very much room for resisting them back there. And similarly, in a lot of provinces, there was no single fight. So that itself shows that we have truly mismanaged the political side of this whole opportunity that we had.
No, now here's the way I look at it, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong. The way I look at it is, General Andarabi, that there was an election coming up in America. Donald Trump had made this one of his own foreign policy goals. And so he rushed in with whatever he got with the Taliban, disregarding what impact it could have. And the simple example of this is the way in which 5,000 American prisoners released, for 1,000 people held by the Taliban. It could have been a tougher negotiation. Now, the one big lever that America had, that Afghanistan had, was given up the moment you agreed to that kind of a swap. Was there any opposition to that from the Afghan government, which you were then a part of? Was there any strong opposition to this kind of a deal? Because it is that deal which is being quoted by everyone now.
If I understand you correctly, I do not think there was a deal of 5,000 Taliban, 1,000 American swap. I don't recall such an occurrence. However, well, the U.S. wanted to end its longest war, so they were looking at their interest, and they started engaging the Taliban. But at the same time, there was an opportunity for our side to be able to engage with Taliban. I have no doubt that the engagement of U.S. with Taliban has legitimized them and turned them into a political presence and removed them from the isolations. But that's the U.S. That's the U.S. wanted. That was their interest in not continuing their longest war for years and years. But what is important for us was the Afghan side, what we could leverage out of this as an opportunity and get something for ourselves. I think with that, we could have played it differently, and particularly the Ghani government could have played it differently. But we could not do that. But now I think if we don't get out of the current situation, we are putting not only Afghanistan in danger, but
General Andarabi,
for the long term for U.S.
You know, General Andarabi, what do you make of the American president now effectively calling Afghan troops cowards? You have been leading these troops. Are they cowards? The point that he's trying to make 300,000 men trained by us cowards? Were they cowards? You know, the American president saying repeatedly, American troops will not come and fight in a war and die in a war that the Afghan forces refuse to fight for themselves. This is, do you stand by this claim? Do you believe in this?
No, that's how he looks at it. That's how the U.S. president looked at it and stated his remark, which that's up to him to question and answer on it. But what I look from our end, that yes, we had a very trained, well-equipped army that are trained for years, not only by U.S., but the whole NATO, including your country, India. So that force was very much capable, and I think that it was brutally mismanaged, particularly the exit of the way that we played the last few months has been very harming for those troops. Yes, those troops has, and in some cases they fought, and in some cases mismanagement, logistic issues could not allow them to do that. But at the end, in the collapse of provincial centers, basically there was no contest. Simply the political side of the government in any province collapsed, and it resulted to the capture of Taliban. And even in Kabul, while in the morning of that day, the president have asked the NDSF to form a committee for defending the city, and in the afternoon he fled. So there was a vacuum of command and structure that affected the NDSF and resulted to this capture. So I think still their equipments, their capabilities, if remains and utilizes, will be of use for future.
Would this have happened if you'd been in charge? You were appointed to the post of Minister of the Interior in December 2015. You were removed from it some 5 months back.
Well,
would this have happened this way if you had been in charge, General Andarabi?
If President has worked differently the moment that he realized that the U.S. forces are leaving, the President did not understand the depth of effect of this on the NDSF in this fight. And that was the difference that I had with him, which resulted to my removal. And he asked me for resignation. And my question was, either I will stay as a minister and make my decisions and have my authorities, or I'll be dismissed. And what is the resignation in between? So I think that the president was not understanding the depth of it. He was circled by a very small circle of advisors who were just advising him based on his mood to hear good news or bad in the way he wanted. So the wider circle that could give him thorough the review of the situation in the depth of the challenges was thoroughly isolated or removed from their positions. I mean, look, President.
I'm sorry, General Andarabi. Sorry to butt in. Yes, sorry to come in, sorry to intervene, but you say that the president did not understand. Did he not understand, or was he deliberately not understanding? And question one. Question two, what is it that you told him which he disagreed with? There was an imminent withdrawal. There was obviously a Taliban threat. You were heading the NDS and you were the Minister of Interior, responsible for security. You must have told him something that he disagreed with. What was that?
Well, the main point was that the president wanted to focus on local warlords, particularly in the Hazarajat area at the time. There was a robbery on NDSF vehicle or something very, very tactical, while the president was diverting all his attention to tackle that. And my point was, sir, this is a small case. We have a bigger case. We have Taliban that are coming. We have summer that's going to come. We have US that may withdraw. So we should not spend the army's time on these tactical threats. Rather, we should focus it on Taliban. And apparently he was thinking that I'm not going to be harsh on that local warlord that he was very much eager to go on. So that was the base of our disagreement, particularly also at the same time, he was making very tactical decisions with his national security advisor, focusing on tactical ground level changes and interference that I was opposing. Also, I was in favor of working with the Afghan politicians, even if we lose some of the leverage that the government may have, but at least we should use them so that we gather the people and get the people with us against the Taliban. But the president wanted to really go from the systematic governance, that closed circle channel, which was the points that we did not agree in, and that resulted to my removal at the time.
Something doesn't add up. Maybe I'm not completely correct, but as an external observer and a keen student of geostrategic issues, something doesn't add up. It appears too sudden, too unanticipated, too quick, and if I may say so, General Andarabi, a little rehearsed. The way in which Kabul fell, the last 4 days, was too quick. Any strategist should have seen it. The complete absence of resistance, the lightning speed with which the Taliban moved, and even the statement of, the televised statement, which I'm sure he made. I'm sure, the former Afghan president had already felt, Ashraf Ghani had already fled Kabul when he had released that statement. It seems too rehearsed. It seems well planned to anyone. A lot of people are beginning to talk about this now. That was this all well planned? Is this drama being played out?
Well, I'm not, and I don't think that this was a well planned or drama. At least I don't see it like that. I think we might go and make any judgment or thinking. I think he was narrowed. He was circled by a very narrow group of advisors that he trusts. Anyone else giving him an advice that was out of that circle was considered to him something not loyal. So that was the number one. Number two is, as I recall, the latest intelligence assessment that the NSA has given him only 3 weeks ago was indicating that if they somehow, with the help of the people uprisers, continue to hold for the coming 2 months, then they will be able to keep it during the winter. So they were predicting of continuation of 6 months, while any other of the circle advice, people like me, people like others who were keep telling that, no, it doesn't look like that. They were considering that as a voice or as an analysis that's against the government or against his power of rule. So I think when you narrow a whole government, a whole system into a decision of 3 guys, this is going to be the result, and this is going to how that failure look like.
Now, we've seen the Northern Alliance, they've seen a resistance force in the Panjshir Valley. I'm sure you're seeing the Amrullah Salehs saying, I'm the activating caretaker president as per the constitution. He's asking for people to join the alliance. There is Ahmad Masood. This is gathering some strength in the Panjshir Valley. How optimistic are you about this resistance militarily?
I think that's not only going to be one point of resistance. We have to continue raising the voice against the Taliban's brutality and the rule, and also show the concern. I think it doesn't start with that resistance, and it will not end with that resistance. What if Taliban march on that and they get that territory as well? So what's going to be after that? I think right now it's not only a matter of territory, it's a matter of the evil and the right, it's a matter of the people's and matter of Taliban's commitment to a new Afghanistan. Otherwise, a total isolation, and certainly the people of Afghanistan will stand against them again, and they will not be able to continue their rule for long if they do not bow to these new principles.
Will this government last? Will this, if you can call it that, will the Taliban last? How long do you see them lasting?
I cannot predict it exactly, but I think that the Taliban will play with the international community, will start to gain time, show some constance, and showed some respect, as their spokesperson the other day was showing, to get time and concrete their presence, because right now it's very, very fragile. And I think once they have settled their governance, maybe in 6 months or more, then they would start brutality, and that will also give them some more time to be able to rule.
And what should be India's role?
I think India had an opportunity to play in the last 10 years. In the last 1 year, I think did not have a very, very active role, assuming of their chance. But I think as any other countries in the world that is raising their voice on Taliban and trying to pressurize them to be compliant with what Afghans are needed, India would be in a strong voice, at least to raise that actively right now.
Well, General Masood Andarabi, this has been fascinating speaking to you. I look forward to being in touch and sharing more with you and having you more often on our channel. It has been great talking to you, General Andarabi. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.